Chapter 5. The cool evening breeze helped Louis clear his head, and his thoughts stopped racing. The world was quiet. The only noises were the soft swing of the grass and the occasional flapping of a bird's wings as they traveled back to their nests for the night. He was wearing what Will had given him, along with his black Jack Wills cap. Louis looked around at his four friends. He looked the smartest out of them all, wearing a white button-up shirt and a black blazer, along with his black jeans and shoes he was wearing earlier. Ryan had a light pink top on, dark grey trousers, his normal shoes, and his backwards cap as usual. He had his head in his phone, much like Baz. The pink-haired man was wearing practically the same thing as he was all day, just added a navy zip-up hoodie, which was grey on the inside, along with an army green colored cap. Reese had the same jeans and boots, but put on a white hoodie with a red Supreme logo over his shirt, and also a grey woolly hat. They walked in silence for around 20 minutes, passing the many rides in the park, which were either on their final rounds or had been closed for the day. Few people were staring at the park in the evening though. It was only those who were staying at the hotel or other members of staff. Eventually, they came to a cluster of buildings and made their way to the center of them to see their destination, the roller coaster restaurant. It looks quite dark inside, but that was because the windows were tinted and the lights inside were red. A large neon sign with the restaurant's name on hung above the door and windows, giving off a light blue glow in the evening light. The drone of conversations could be heard from within, which only got louder as the group stepped inside. The lights made the restaurant look a little eerie. The metal on the roller coaster rails gave off a red glow as if they were molten, the chairs looking like a black midnight. People looked as if they were dangerously sunburned. Everyone's hair was black, and their glinting red eyes watched the room creepily. They were greeted by a waitress who asked them the usual questions of how has your day been? Have you stayed with us before? Have you reserved a table this evening? Should be a table for 5 in the name of Will Ryan. The musician asked, even though it was more of a statement. The waitress looked over her shuttle with a pounded lips before smiling. Yes! Right this way, gentlemen! She took them to a large, circular table that could have really fit 8 people on it. Roller coaster tracks spiraled down towards the center of the table, onto a large, black plinth. The table itself had the printed designs of all of the park attractions logos. There was the Nemesis, 13, the Wicker Man, Galactica, and a few others. And Louis started to vlog. Everyone looked at him, extremely confused about how he had the energy and motivation to do this right now. They were also confused as to how he managed to bring his camera without anyone noticing. He waved a dismissive hand to suggest that they shouldn't make a point of it. The younger man enthusiastically and cheerfully spoke about the restaurant, letting the camera show the logos on the table, and gave a quick pan around of the view from their area. Only Reese managed to wave as the camera hit him. He turned off the camera as the waiter brought them their menus. The guy clearly didn't want to be here and listened to the group with a distant interest before mooching back to the kitchen. He returned a little later to collect the orders and was never seen again. He wasn't paid to have conversations. The drinks came out quickly and everyone but Will, who had been to the restaurant before, was amazed as the little carts came down the rails. Louis recorded them and you could hear his lover in the background. "That's so cool," he said. The others definitely agreed with him. They opened up their drinks, with Ryan's and Louis having opted for Diet Coke. Reese ordered a lemonade, and Will just went with plain water. Louis hoped that his voice wasn't going to sound weird on the recording, feeling a slight twitch of pain in his throat every time he talked. The earlier tension seemed to disintegrate as the group had a pleasant conversation. They talked about the park, the rides. Will and Baz talked about the ducks they fed. They started thinking about any collaboration videos they could do in future. That topic led onto upcoming games, etc. The topic of Five Nights at Freddy's came up, which wasn't unexpected. You're really going to try and beat 50-20 mode? Ryan asked Louis, taking a long sip from his Diet Coke. Louis laughed nervously and shook his head. What have I gotten myself into, mate? The younger man replied. I don't know why I ever agreed to it, to be honest. You are not looking forward to it then? Reese said it like a suggestion. I swear to God, it's just going to be stress personified. Louis started. But I said I would do it, so I'll keep my word. I'm sure Scott won't mind if you back out the challenge. Ryan nodded. Scott? Scott? He's the biggest troll on the internet. He will never let me let that down. The others didn't disagree. Besides, if I back out, I said I would make a fun game or something stupid like that. And if I'm being honest, it's not him I'm worried about disappointing. Our subscribers? They would be fine with that. The musician said, No offense, Will, but I think you know better than anyone else how pressuring they can be. The purple-haired man nodded thoughtfully, remembering Bandy and the ink machine and the pressure to make content for it. Just take it easy if you are going to try it, the Scotsman explained. Don't let yourself become too stressed by it. It's not coming out for another month yet. I'll be fine, mate. The sound of clanking metal was heard and the group looked up to the lines of rings on the ceiling. Looks like the foot is here, Bass said, putting his arm on the race in front of him so he could stop the foot from rolling past. Louis quickly started to record again, keeping the camera focused on the rolling trace of foot. Each one came out in a quick session of the other, and before long there was a row of trays in front of them. After a brief spell of confusion about whose was whose, they had a steaming plate of delicious smelling food in front of them. Both Ryan and Bass had listened to Will's recommendation and ordered an ultimate rollercoaster burger with fries. A beef burger with chorizo sausage slices inside. Will himself had gone for penne pasta carbonara with a basket of garlic bread, while Reese ordered beef short rib, which was practically two really chunky, slow grilled ribs with mashed vegetables and gravy. Louis, despite not actually feeling hungry, ordered a 100Z rump steak with chips, tomatoes, mushrooms, and onion rings. It came with a pepper sauce, which he used to drown his meal, and then he just stared at it. Ryan gave him an odd look. Would you like some steak with that sauce? He joked. The younger man tooted and rolled his eyes. Everyone else, however, ate hungrily, quickly tucking into their meals and all saying how good theirs was. You then had the usual event of everybody wanting to try everybody else's food to see who picked the best. Louis politely requested that the others didn't try his though. Part of him was worried that it wasn't travel sickness this morning and that he had actually caught the bug, while another part of him was a little bit of germaphobe. The other men respected his choice. Some of them previously predicted that that would be the case. It was however decided that yes, you should have ordered the spaghetti. Little talk was made during the meal. Everybody relished each bite. The musician was right. This was a damn good place to go. Reese finished first and longingly eyed up Will's garlic bread, dropping subtle questions as to how it tasted. The purple-haired man grinned at each attempt, every time taking another slice and eating it slowly. When the Scotsman gave up, he laughed and passed the basket over. A muffled thank you was heard as Reese stuffed the first of the remaining slices into his mouth. Oh, sugar! Louis hissed, clamping his arms around his stomach and shutting his eyes tightly. Everyone's attention suddenly turned to him. You alright? Reese asked through a mouthful of bread. Louis suddenly gagged and covered his mouth and stood up from the table, speed walking over to the toilets and slamming open the door. Will gave Reese an I told you so look and began standing up. Wait a second, Buzz jumped in. The last thing he would want right now is an audience. Give him a few minutes. And so they did. Reese glanced at the last bit of garlic bread. He had lost his appetite. The waitress from earlier had seen a young man run into the toilets and feared the worst. She rushed over to the group she had helped earlier and asked if everything was okay with the food or if their friend was allergic to anything. Not another lawsuit, she thought to herself. The man with a long light brown fringe reassured her that their friend just wasn't the best with roller coasters and suggested that when he came back out it might be a good idea to call a janitor. She nodded and sincerely apologized that he wasn't feeling well before going back to the front desk. 2 minutes passed. Ren was drumming his fingers against the table nervously, watching people go by and hoping that the toilets were empty when their younger friend rushed in. 3 minutes passed. Baz looked at the Louis plate. If he remembered how it first looked correctly, Louis had only eaten a few chips, a mouthful of steak, and half a salad. If he hadn't eaten anything since yesterday, he wasn't going to be throwing up much except bile. That was going to make his throat sore. 5 minutes passed. The waitress came over again and offered to get a glass of ice water for when the group's friend came back out. The group took her offer gratefully. 10 minutes passed. Alright, this is getting ridiculous, Wells said, standing up once again. I'm going to go and find him. No one stopped him this time. The musician casually strolled over to the toilets, not trying to make a scene. Other customers had seen their friends rush in, and the more curious, the more intrusive, customers were starting to mutter among themselves as to what was happening. He opened the door to reveal a rather regular-looking man's toilet. It was sort of comforting to be out of the red light of the main restaurant and into a normally lighted place. The last time he came here, he could have sworn that the lights weren't that color. But then again, he had come in the day. The toilet had black and white tiled floors with grey walls, one lined with a row of sinks and other lined with urinals, each one concealed behind walls. There were a few normal stalls for those who felt the need to take a shit in a public space, or those who needed to throw up. Speaking of which, only one of these stalls was closed and no strangers were in the toilets with Will. Lou? He called quietly. Louis, you in here? His response was a groan. Yep, that's him. You in this one? The musician asked, knocking on the closed stall door. It was unlocked, and it was clear that that was where Louis was, but he waited outside. His younger friend didn't reply. The air smelled foul and a horrid taste was forming at the back of Louis' throat, but he said nothing. Heavy yet raspy breathing was heard from the other side of the door. Are you alright, Dawkins? No. He coughed, and there was a splash. Will shivered with cringe. Clothes shuffled, and there was a thud against the plastic wall. Can I open the door? Will asked. No response. Louis? No response. The purple-haired man felt a panic rising inside of him. Mate? No response. Alright, I'm opening the door now. He swung the door open, hearing it squeal on rusty hinges that were in desperate need of oil. The musician had expected to see his younger friend bent over the toilet, with his back turned to him. But no, he was slumped by the side of it, looking like he was about to pass out, his skin pale. His head was dotted with beds of sweat, and his mouth was covered in something sticky looking. His eyes were closed, but the lids were fluttering. His chest rose and sunk quickly, his hands gripping either side of his stomach. The toilet was filled with a pinkish yellow liquid, but Will didn't look at it, feeling like he was about to be sick himself. It was around 5 minutes later when Reese and Ryan finally saw Will and Louis again. The bathroom door opened up, letting the white, artificial light seep back into the restaurant. Will walked out, gripping their younger friend tightly by one of his arms, a look of extreme concern on his face. The kind waitress rushed over to them. "Do you need anything, sir? Can we have the check, please?" the musician asked in a rush, not stopping to talk. Reese quickly stood up and strode over to his two younger friends, taking a hold of Louis' other arm to help him get back to his chair. Ryan and Baz looked at each other, not sure what to do to help. Louis slumped into his seat, put his elbows on the table and leaned on his hands, covering up his face. Everything spinning. As she had promised, the waitress brought a glass with ice-cold water and stated that their check was just coming. She attempted to hand Louis the glass, but he was being completely unresponsive, so she simply placed it down in front of him. She asked where the grove was staying and grimaced when she realized how far it was. "Tell you what," she started. "Do you want me to ring reception? I'm sure I can get transfer for you guys. It will save you the struggle of having to get home on foot." Will thanked her, very grateful for everything she had done so far, and she walked away to make the call. The group all sat back down quietly, ignoring the imposing stares from other snack-up customers who were wondering why they weren't getting the special treatment. One particular woman who seemed way too drunk to be in a restaurant with kids stood up. She was in her late 40s with the typical "I want to speak to the manager" haircut, and as soon as she was standing, she explained how sore her feet were and how she wanted a ride home. She looked over at the group of 5 men with a smirk and saw one of them with brightly colored hair glare at her with a scowl forming on his mouth. He began to stand up. She quickly sat down. The check came shortly after, and it was paid hastily, even though everyone knew they had to wait for the car to arrive. The uncaring waiter who had first given them their menus that night began to walk away, before suddenly realizing something. "Hey, are you that FNAF guy from the internet?" he asked Louis. He gave a slight nod, his head still in his hand. "Cool, can I have a picture with you?" "He's not feeling well, mate," Ryan told the waiter. "Sorry, but not right now." "I didn't ask you, idiot!" the waiter snapped, pulling out his phone and turning on the camera. He grabbed Louis' shoulder and tried to shake him to get him to look. The entire table almost screamed at him, and the head waitress ran over and told him to go back to the kitchen right now. She apologized profusely and said that there was a golf cart waiting for them outside. The group stood up and thanked her. Ryan and Reese, who were on the left and right of Louis, helped him up, even though he didn't want it. He was muttering something they couldn't quite understand, but in all honesty, they were more concerned about getting him outside. The musician gave the head waitress a €20 tip and apologized for the fuss they had caused and thanked her for all the help before leaving. The head waitress watched them get into the golf cart and watched as it pulled away before she felt a pat on her shoulder. She turned around to see the janitor. "It's all cleared up, ma'am," he said in his young American accent. The waitress nodded. "I feel terrible for him. I guess he's not a roller coaster person." She joked lightly. The janitor raised an eyebrow. "You'll throw up food and bile if you're motion sick, that's for sure. But blood? Blood?" She got a few glances from the restaurant's remaining patriots. "He threw up blood?" She said more quietly, her eyes widening in fear. "Oh no, it's nothing terrible," the janitor reassured. "There were a few spots of blood, that's all." "It's still not good!" "For all we know, he tripped and got a bloody nose. Or he accidentally cut himself on a knife or bit his tongue. I'm sure he will be okay, ma'am." There was a crash from the kitchen and the janitor looked towards it with a sigh. He tipped his head to the head waitress. "Ridiculous, I'm out of here." The waitress shook her head and looked back outside, but the cart was long gone. Alright people, that was the first 5 chapters of the Message to Scout Captain Reimagined. If you liked it, then I would love for you if you leave a like. It will mean a world to me if you subscribe for more, if you share it with your friends, or just said that, hey, this dude is doing audiobooks and animation and movies
Maybe if you have a book or anything you would like to get to more people, we could collab together. I would love that. This reading took me 8 hours, so it will be lovely if you comment how you liked it, if you will tell me like, hey, I did like this bit, some constructive criticism, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, if you would like to see anything else or something special, comment down below what you want to see on my channel. Or if you have anything to tell me about this, I would love to hear it out. You can read more from this author down below. Their profile is down there. And yeah, you can look forward to very soon they're coming the chapter 6 to 10. And yet again, if you haven't heard the prologue, then it's up there and in the playlist that this is coming in. And yeah, send love to the author, send love to me. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye, love y'all.